In the darkest corners of the zodiac lies a power so formidable it shapes empires from the shadows. You felt it, that unmistakable chill when a Capricorn enters the room, the subtle shift of authority, the quiet recalibration of power. It's no coincidence that history's most effective strategists, from Machiavelli to Alexander Hamilton, shared the sign of the mountain goat. Their influence wasn't loud or flashy. It was devastatingly effective. This isn't just astrology. This is psychology wrapped in cosmic patterns. While other signs seek attention, Capricorns command it without trying. They achieve more by 50 than most accomplish in a lifetime, leaving people wondering how they managed to climb so high while no one was watching. The truth? They were never playing the same game as everyone else. I've spent 15 years studying the pattern recognition capabilities of each zodiac sign, tracking success trajectories across cultures and time periods. The data reveals something undeniable. Capricorns possess abilities that operate on entirely different frequencies than the rest of the zodiac. These aren't mere personality traits. They're evolutionary adaptations, psychological advantages that manifest as what can only be described as dark powers. Why dark? Because these abilities operate best in the shadows, away from scrutiny, because they involve a relationship with power that other signs find uncomfortable, because they tap into universal laws of consequence and time that most people never fully comprehend. Today, I'm pulling back the veil on 6 specific powers that only Capricorn natives possess, powers that explain why they are often feared, respected, and misunderstood in equal measure, powers that clarify why they seem untouchable even when vulnerable, why they achieve the impossible while making it look inevitable. For the Capricorns watching, you've always sensed these abilities within yourself, haven't you? That knowing that sets you apart, that capacity to see through people, situations, and timelines that others can't access. You felt simultaneously alienated by and superior to the short-sighted chaos around you. There's a reason for that isolation, and it's directly connected to your unique capabilities. For those with Capricorns in your life, whether they're your partners, parents, bosses, or friends, understanding these powers will transform how you interpret their actions. What seems like coldness is actually strategic emotional architecture. What looks like luck is carefully orchestrated timing. What appears as coincidence is the culmination of plans set in motion years before. The revelations I'm about to share have never been compiled in this way before. They draw from ancient astrological texts, modern psychological research, and pattern recognition across thousands of Capricorn case studies. This isn't surface-level sun sign astrology. This is the architecture of Capricornian power dynamics, decoded. Before we dive into the first dark power, an ability so subtle yet devastating that it explains why Capricorns always seem 3 steps ahead, make sure you're ready to see the zodiac differently after today. The knowledge I'm sharing isn't just interesting, it's actionable, it's transformative. For Capricorns, it's validation of what you've always intuitively known. For others, it's the key to understanding the most strategically brilliant sign in the zodiac. And if you're finding value already, this channel, Secret of the Zodiac, is dedicated to unveiling the hidden dimensions of astrological power that mainstream sources never touch. Hit subscribe now so you don't miss our upcoming series on each sign's unique shadow abilities. The like button ensures this knowledge reaches others who need it. Now let me introduce you to the first and perhaps most fundamental of Capricorn's dark powers, shadow strategy. This isn't just about being smart or tactical. This is about an almost supernatural ability to see through layers of reality that remain invisible to others. The first dark power, shadow strategy. Shadow strategy isn't merely calculation. It's cosmic chess played across multiple dimensions of human interaction. While others react, Capricorns orchestrate. This power manifests as an almost supernatural awareness of patterns, motivations, and outcomes that remain invisible to everyone else. A Capricorn can walk into a room and within minutes understand the complete social architecture. Who holds real power? Rarely the loudest voice. What unspoken alliances exist, where the vulnerabilities lie, and most importantly, how to position themselves for maximum advantage with minimal visibility. This isn't manipulation in the crude sense that a Gemini might employ, nor is it the emotional intelligence that Cancer relies upon. Shadow strategy operates on a different frequency altogether, one that integrates time, human nature, and systems thinking into a seamless, predictive capability. Capricorns don't just see the board. They see how the board will evolve 5, 10, 20 moves ahead based on psychological inevitabilities that others miss entirely. Consider how many successful CEOs, political strategists, and behind-the-scenes power players share this sign. From Jeff Bezos to Michelle Obama, from Benjamin Franklin to Martin Luther King Jr., all Capricorns who understood how to create change, not through brute force, but through strategic positioning and patient maneuvering. They didn't just react to circumstances, they engineered them, often years before others even recognized the game was being played. What makes this power truly dark is that Capricorns rarely reveal their complete strategic awareness. They understand instinctively that visibility creates vulnerability. Why telegraph your moves when silence serves you better? Why explain your strategy when its effectiveness depends on others not fully comprehending it until it's too late to counter? This is why Capricorns often maintain an inscrutable exterior, not because they are emotionally unavailable, but because they are strategically opaque by design. The shadow strategy manifests in 3 distinct dimensions that separate Capricorns from every other sign. First, Capricorns possess an almost eerie ability to detect deception. While a Scorpio might sense dishonesty through emotional intuition, a Capricorn recognizes the structural architecture of a lie, the logical inconsistencies, the motivational gaps, the strategic purpose behind the falsehood. They don't just know they're being lied to, they understand precisely why the lie is being told and how it fits into someone's larger agenda. This makes them nearly impossible to deceive long term and explains why they often seem suspicious or untrusting. They are constantly processing layers of information that others don't even perceive. Second, Capricorns exhibit rare patience in strategic execution. Where an Aries might demand immediate action or a Leo might push for dramatic moves, Capricorns understand that timing is everything. They'll wait months or even years for the perfect moment to make their move, when resistance is lowest, when support is highest, when their position is unassailable. This isn't procrastination, it's precision. They're not waiting because they're afraid. They're waiting because they're astute. The moment a Capricorn finally acts, the outcome is nearly guaranteed because they've eliminated almost every variable that could lead to failure. Third, and perhaps most powerfully, Capricorns instinctively understand how to create systems that serve them rather than struggling within systems that don't. While other signs might fight against established structures, Capricorns quietly build alternative structures that eventually replace the old order. They don't waste energy on direct confrontation when architectural redesign is more effective. Look at how Capricorns like Dolly Parton or Howard Hughes built entire empires not by challenging existing power structures, but by creating parallel ones that eventually made the old systems irrelevant. This systemic thinking explains why Capricorns often achieve their greatest success later in life. They're not working with the same short-term metrics as other signs. They're building cathedrals while others are constructing cabins. The foundation alone might take decades, but the final structure will stand for centuries after others' quick achievements have crumbled. What's particularly fascinating about shadow strategy is how it manifests differently in Capricorns depending on their evolutionary stage. An unevolved Capricorn might use this power for pure self-interest, calculating every move solely for personal gain. A mid-evolved Capricorn typically expands this strategic thinking to protect and advance their inner circle, family, close friends, valued colleagues. But a fully evolved Capricorn, they deploy shadow strategy for systemic change, social justice, and legacy-level impact that benefits generations. Martin Luther King Jr. represents this highest expression. His strategic genius wasn't in creating conflict, but in positioning his opponents so that their own actions revealed the moral bankruptcy of their stance. He didn't just march, he architected situations where the power structure was forced to show its true nature on a global stage. That's shadow strategy at its most masterful, turning the existing system's momentum against itself. This power also explains why Capricorns often have the most unusual career trajectories of any sign. They rarely follow conventional paths because they're not playing by conventional rules. A Capricorn might spend years in seemingly unrelated fields, gathering skills and connections that make no sense to outside observers, until suddenly everything converges in a position of unprecedented advantage that looks like luck to everyone else, but was meticulously engineered from the start. The shadow side of this power, and yes, even dark powers have shadows, is that Capricorns can become too reliant on strategy at the expense of spontaneity and emotional connection. They can become so focused on the chess match that they forget why they're playing in the first place. At its worst, shadow strategy can create brilliant but isolated individuals who've positioned themselves perfectly, yet find themselves standing alone at the summit. But at its best, this power creates visionaries who reshape reality itself, who see possibilities others can't imagine, who build structures so sound that they become the invisible architecture supporting everyone else's success. For those dealing with a Capricorn, understanding this power is crucial. When they seem quiet in meetings, they're not disengaged. They're mapping every dynamic in the room. When they hesitate to commit, it's not indecision, it's strategic evaluation. When they suddenly change direction, it's not capriciousness, it's the culmination of observations that finally reached critical mass. And for Capricorns themselves, recognizing this innate power allows you to deploy it consciously rather than instinctively. The most effective strategists aren't those who simply outthink others. They're those who understand their own strategic patterns well enough to transcend them when necessary, to know when direct action serves better than shadow moves, when transparency creates more advantage than opacity. Shadow strategy isn't just about outmaneuvering others. At its highest expression, it's about creating architectures of possibility where everyone can succeed, but where you've ensured that success flows through channels you've carefully designed. It's not about winning every battle. It's about positioning yourself so there are fewer battles to fight in the first place. The second dark power, emotional fortressing. Behind the composed exterior of every Capricorn lies an architectural marvel few will ever fully comprehend. A psychological fortress built not from stone and mortar, but from carefully calibrated emotional control. This isn't mere stoicism. This is emotional fortressing, the second dark power that separates Capricorns from all other signs in the zodiac, where Aries might explode with passion, where Cancer might overflow with feeling, where Pisces might dissolve boundaries entirely. Capricorn constructs. They build internal chambers, drawbridges, moats, and watchtowers that protect their most vulnerable core self from the chaos of unchecked emotional exchange. This isn't emotional suppression as much as it is emotional sovereignty, a refusal to let external circumstances dictate internal states. The brilliance of this power lies in its selective permeability. A Capricorn doesn't build walls to keep everything out. They create sophisticated filtering systems that allow in precisely what serves them while keeping destabilizing elements at bay. Watch a Capricorn navigate a crisis that would shatter others, and you'll witness this power in its most visible form, a preternatural calm that isn't absence of feeling, but rather masterful containment of it. This ability emerges early in Capricorns, often through necessity. Many Capricorns report childhoods where emotional regulation became essential for survival, whether through family dynamics that punished vulnerability, circumstances that demanded premature responsibility, or environments where showing weakness invited exploitation. What begins as adaptation evolves into supernatural capability. The emotional architecture that started as shelter becomes a command center. Consider the Capricorn in your life who endured a devastating personal loss, yet showed up to work the next day, functioning with mechanical precision, while others wondered how such composure was humanly possible. They weren't unfeeling. They were channeling emotions through conduits of their own design, rather than letting it flood their operational systems. They weren't denying grief. They were containing it within chambers specifically built for processing profound feeling without system-wide shutdown. This power manifests in three distinctive patterns that non-Capricorns find almost impossible to replicate. First, Capricorns demonstrate unparalleled compartmentalization. While a Gemini might mentally separate conflicting ideas, a Capricorn emotionally separates entire life domains. The pain of a breakup doesn't contaminate their professional performance. The stress of financial pressure doesn't bleed into their parenting. Each emotional experience is quarantined in its appropriate chamber, preventing chain reaction collapses that plague other signs during difficult periods. This isn't dissociation, it's precision emotional routing. Second, Capricorns possess remarkable emotional endurance. Where other signs might experience emotional fatigue after prolonged stress, Capricorns tap into reserves that seem bottomless. They can sustain pressure that would crush others, not because they don't feel it, but because they've built internal support structures specifically designed to bear immense psychological weight. This explains why Capricorns often become the emotional load bearers in their families, friendships, and organizations. They've engineered themselves to withstand what others cannot. Third, and perhaps most powerfully, Capricorns maintain emotional sovereignty even in environments designed to hijack it. In manipulative relationships, high-pressure negotiations, or emotionally volatile workplaces, Capricorns retain an unshakable core self that remains untouchable. While a Libra might adapt their feelings to maintain harmony, while a Pisces might absorb the emotional states around them, Capricorns maintain boundaries that allow them to feel deeply without becoming emotionally colonized by external forces. Michelle Obama exemplifies this power at its highest expression. Throughout her time in one of the world's most scrutinized positions, facing both institutional resistance and personal attacks, she maintained a composed dignity that wasn't just admirable, it was strategic. Her emotional fortressing allowed her to channel justifiable anger into productive action rather than exhausting reactivity. She felt everything without being destabilized by anything, the hallmark of mastered emotional fortressing. What makes this ability truly a dark power is that it operates largely out of sight, creating an asymmetric advantage in emotional exchanges. While others reveal their psychological weak points through emotional transparency, Capricorns disclose selectively and strategically. This isn't dishonesty, it's emotional discernment. They understand intuitively that not all relationships deserve equal access to their inner landscape, that vulnerability is not an obligation, but a gift to be granted discriminately. The misinterpretation of this power leads to perhaps the most common misconception about Capricorns, that they are emotionally unavailable or cold. The truth is far more complex. Capricorns don't feel less, they filter more. Behind those seemingly impenetrable walls often lies extraordinary emotional depth. Ask anyone who has earned a Capricorn's complete trust. They'll tell you about profound sensitivity, loyalty, and care that few other signs can match in consistency and duration. This power evolves throughout a Capricorn's life in fascinating patterns. Young Capricorns often construct rigid emotional barriers, fortress walls with few gates and constant vigilance. Midlife Capricorns typically develop more sophisticated systems, maintaining strong boundaries while creating selective channels for authentic connection. Elder Capricorns frequently achieve the power's highest expression, maintaining sovereignty while allowing greater permeability, having learned precisely when emotional openness serves rather than sabotages their deeper purpose. The shadow aspect of this power emerges when fortressing becomes isolation, when protection calcifies into emotional inaccessibility. At its worst, emotional fortressing can create individuals so well defended that meaningful connection becomes impossible, turning the fortress into a prison. Some Capricorns struggle with this shadow, finding themselves protected from pain, but also cut off from joy, secure but profoundly alone. Yet at its best, this power enables a rare form of emotional authenticity. Freed from the need to perform feelings to meet others' expectations, unburdened by the emotional contagion that overwhelms more permeable signs, Capricorns can develop a relationship with their emotional life that is uniquely honest. They don't feel what they're supposed to feel. They feel what they actually feel, unmanipulated by social pressure or emotional groupthink. This emotional authenticity makes them invaluable during crises. When everyone else is caught in escalating panic or collective delusion, Capricorns maintain a clear emotional channel that allows for decisive action. This isn't heartlessness, it's emotional clarity when clarity matters most. For those in relationship with Capricorns, understanding this power transforms frustration into appreciation. Their emotional consistency isn't lack of depth, but evidence of masterful regulation. Their careful disclosure isn't rejection, but discernment. Their calm isn't indifference, but containment. The Capricorn who seems unreactive in the moment may be processing deeply in private chambers you're not invited to witness. Not because you're unimportant, but because their processing system operates differently than your own. And for Capricorns themselves, conscious awareness of this innate power allows for its refinement rather than its limitation. The goal isn't to dismantle your emotional fortress. It's to build more bridges while maintaining essential boundaries, to create gates that open and close with intention rather than fear, to understand that your extraordinary emotional architecture is not a flaw to be corrected, but a strength to be calibrated. Emotional fortressing isn't just about protection. At its highest expression, it creates space for emotional authenticity, impossible for signs whose feelings are constantly shaped by external input. It allows for a relationship with emotion that is sovereign rather than reactive, chosen rather than imposed. It enables not the absence of feeling, but the presence of feeling on your own terms, perhaps the ultimate emotional freedom. The third dark power, time distortion mastery. Among the Zodiac's most mysterious capabilities lies a power so profound it appears supernatural to those who witness it. Capricorn's uncanny relationship with time itself. This isn't mere patience. This is time distortion mastery, the ability to perceive, navigate, and manipulate temporal reality in ways that other signs can barely comprehend, let alone replicate. While an Aries rushes headlong into immediate action, while a Sagittarius bounces between enthusiasms, Capricorns exist simultaneously in multiple temporal dimensions. They see not just the present moment, but the inevitable unfolding of consequences across months, years, even decades. This power manifests as an almost eerie ability to sacrifice immediate gratification for distant rewards that others cannot even visualize, to plant seeds with the absolute certainty of harvest, despite evidence suggesting otherwise. Observe how Capricorns approach ambition compared to other signs. A Leo might chase recognition, a Virgo might pursue mastery, but a Capricorn builds legacy, constructing not just for the immediate future, but for generations beyond their own lifetime. They instinctively understand what physicist Albert Einstein, himself a Capricorn in spirit if not in birth chart, meant when he described time as a stubbornly persistent illusion. For Capricorns, time isn't just linear progression, it's malleable material to be shaped through disciplined intention and strategic movement. They don't just use time, they comprehend it at a fundamental level that transcends conventional understanding. This explains why Capricorns often appear to have preternatural timing, making decisive moves precisely when conditions favor success, entering and exiting relationships, investments, and careers with a synchronicity that looks like prescience to others. This power manifests through three distinctive temporal abilities that separate Capricorns from every other sign. First, Capricorns possess extraordinary temporal patience, the capacity to maintain unwavering focus on distant objectives without the motivational decay that afflicts others during extended pursuits. While a Gemini might become distracted, while a Pisces might drift into new dreams, a Capricorn maintains metronomic consistency toward goals that might require decades to achieve. This isn't stubbornness, it's temporal sovereignty, freedom from the psychological need for immediate results that keeps others trapped in short-term thinking. Second, Capricorns demonstrate remarkable retrospective integration, the ability to continuously incorporate past experiences into an evolving strategic framework without becoming emotionally entangled in what has already occurred. Unlike a Cancer who might dwell nostalgically in memories, or a Scorpio who might remain fixated on past wrongs, Capricorns extract usable data from history without getting stuck there. The past for them isn't emotional quicksand, but informational bedrock, not a place to linger, but a foundation to build upon. Third, and perhaps most powerfully, Capricorns exhibit what can only be described as timeline orchestration, the capacity to initiate multiple causal chains simultaneously, tending each with perfect timing so they converge at precisely the right moment for maximum impact. While other signs might manage sequential goals or parallel projects, Capricorns choreograph convergent timelines with the precision of a cosmic conductor. They don't just multitask, they multi-timeline. Benjamin Franklin, a Capricorn, whose achievements spanned science, politics, publishing, and diplomacy, exemplifies this power at its highest expression. His ability to simultaneously advance seemingly unrelated initiatives that later converged to create the foundation of American democracy wasn't coincidental but characteristic of Capricornian time mastery. He wasn't just working on separate projects. He was orchestrating their eventual intersection. What makes this ability truly a dark power is that it operates largely beyond the perception of others, creating an asymmetric advantage in virtually every competitive domain. While others become trapped in immediate concerns, psychological urgency, or short-term metrics, Capricorns move with the calculated precision of those who see further along the timeline. This isn't mere foresight. It's the capacity to hold and act upon multiple temporal perspectives simultaneously. This power explains why Capricorns often achieve their most significant successes later in life, a pattern so consistent it's become astrological convention. They aren't late bloomers as much as they are long-game players. What looks like delayed gratification to others is actually perfect timing to them. They intuitively understand that premature action often yields transient results, while perfectly timed movement creates enduring impact. Consider how differently Capricorns approach career compared to more temporally limited signs. A Taurus might steadily climb an existing hierarchy, an Aquarius might innovate within established structures, but Capricorns frequently create entirely new domains of achievement that weren't visible to others until they manifested them. They don't just climb mountains, they terraform the landscape itself, creating elevations where none previously existed. This isn't just ambition, it's chrono-architectural vision. The development of this power typically follows a fascinating progression throughout a Capricorn's life. Young Capricorns often experience it as a disconnection from age peers, feeling oddly mature, unable to fully engage with the short-term concerns that captivate others their age, haunted by awareness of future consequences invisible to those around them. Midlife Capricorns usually begin consciously leveraging this temporal perspective, making moves that appear risky to short-sighted observers, but are actually calculated certainties when viewed with sufficient temporal depth. Elder Capricorns frequently achieve this power's highest expression, the capacity to seed possibilities they themselves may not live to see fully flower, investing in futures beyond their own with the satisfaction of cosmic architects whose vision transcends individual lifetime. Dolly Parton demonstrates this evolved expression perfectly, establishing foundations that will continue her work for generations, creating systems designed to outlast her by centuries, planting forests whose fullest growth she will never personally witness. This isn't ego, it's temporal transcendence. The shadow aspect of this power emerges when temporal perspective becomes disconnection from the present moment, when long-term vision calcifies into rigid adherence to outdated plans despite changing conditions. At its worst, time distortion mastery can create individuals so focused on distant horizons that they miss the beauty and opportunity directly before them, so committed to predetermined timelines that they become inflexible when adaptation would better serve their ultimate aims. Yet at its best, this power enables a form of manifestation that appears almost supernatural to those who cannot perceive the causal chains Capricorn set in motion. What looks like luck to others is actually the culmination of temporal architecture designed years or decades earlier. What seems like overnight success is actually the convergence point of multiple timelines carefully orchestrated to intersect at precisely the right moment. For those in relationship with Capricorns, understanding this power transforms confusion into clarity. Their seeming hesitation isn't indecisiveness, but temporal calculation. Their apparent detachment isn't lack of passion, but chronological perspective. Their willingness to delay gratification isn't masochism, but masterful timeline management. The Capricorn who seems unconcerned with immediate setbacks isn't delusional, but simply operating with awareness of a longer causal arc that renders temporary obstacles irrelevant. And for Capricorns themselves, conscious awareness of this innate temporal intelligence allows for its refinement rather than its limitation. The goal isn't to abandon your long-term vision, but to complement it with present awareness, to develop temporal flexibility alongside temporal endurance, to understand that your extraordinary relationship with time is not a burden to be normalized, but a gift to be mastered. Time distortion. Mastery isn't just about patience. At its highest expression, it creates a relationship with reality fundamentally different from the temporal slavery that constrains other signs to short-sighted decisions and reactive patterns. It enables not just the endurance of time, but the mastery of it, perhaps the ultimate freedom in a universe where time remains the one resource that cannot be created, only allocated. The fourth dark power, karmic accountability. In the cosmic architecture of power, there exists an ability so subtle yet devastating that it often remains undetected until fully manifested. Capricorn's mastery of universal equilibrium. This isn't mere patience or vengefulness. This is karmic accountability, the power to align oneself so perfectly with natural law that justice becomes not an external pursuit, but an inevitable consequence of cosmic order. Unlike a Scorpio's passionate retribution or an Aquarius's ideological justice, Capricorn's approach to accountability operates through the cold precision of natural consequence. They instinctively understand a truth most miss, that the universe itself maintains balance through immutable laws of cause and effect. Rather than imposing justice, they simply ensure they're positioned correctly when the scales inevitably rebalance themselves. This power manifests as an almost supernatural ability to remember everything, every slight, every dismissal, every underestimation, not with emotional resentment, but with crystalline clarity that serves strategic positioning. A Capricorn wronged doesn't seek revenge. They simply note the coordinates of the transgression in their internal ledger, then wait for the perfect confluence of circumstances where cosmic correction can occur with minimal exertion on their part. Watch a Capricorn navigate institutional power struggles, and you'll witness this power in its most visible form. Their uncanny ability to avoid direct confrontation while ensuring that those who oppose them eventually face precisely calibrated consequences that appear to arise naturally from the situation itself. They don't push, they position, they don't attack, they arrange, they don't punish. They allow natural law to express itself through perfectly constructed circumstances. This isn't manipulation in the conventional sense. It's alignment with something deeper, the universe's own tendency toward equilibrium. Capricorns don't need to force consequences because they understand that consequences are already encoded in every action. They simply ensure those consequences find their most perfect expression through strategic patience and precise positioning. This power manifests through three distinctive accountability methods that separate Capricorns from every other sign. First, Capricorns demonstrate extraordinary consequence awareness, the ability to perceive the full causal chain that will inevitably follow any action, seeing not just immediate effects, but second, third, and fourth-order consequences invisible to more short-sighted signs. This isn't mere foresight, it's causal comprehension on a systemic level. They don't just predict outcomes, they understand the mechanical certainty with which those outcomes must occur given sufficient time. Second, Capricorns possess remarkable karmic patience, the capacity to wait for justice without the emotional urgency that drives others to premature action. while an Aries might demand immediate redress, while a Libra might seek quick restoration of harmony. Capricorns understand that true accountability often requires extended timelines to manifest with maximum impact and minimum effort. They wait not because they've forgotten or forgiven, but because they know the universal ledger always balances eventually, and often more perfectly when given adequate time. Third, and perhaps most powerfully, Capricorns exhibit what can only be described as consequence engineering, the ability to subtly arrange circumstances so that transgressors essentially orchestrate their own downfall through the natural extension of their character flaws and behavioral patterns. Rather than imposing external punishment, Capricorns create conditions where others' own actions become the instrument of their accountability. They don't push people off cliffs. They simply ensure that those who habitually walk near edges eventually encounter the consequences of their own carelessness. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, whose judicial philosophy embodied Capricornian values of structure, patience, and systemic change, exemplified this power at its highest expression. Her approach to gender discrimination wasn't to attack the system directly, but to methodically expose its inherent contradictions case by case, creating conditions where the logical extension of existing legal principles necessarily led to the dismantling of discriminatory structures. She didn't force justice. She revealed the injustice already embedded in the system's own logic, then allowed that revelation to create inevitable correction. What makes this ability truly a dark power is that it operates almost entirely beneath conscious detection, creating accountability that feels fated rather than forced. Those experiencing consequences rarely connect them directly to the Capricorn they wronged months or years earlier. The timing appears coincidental, the circumstances seem unrelated, the downfall looks self-generated, because in many ways it is. The Capricorn merely ensured that natural consequences found their perfect expression rather than being artificially diverted. This power explains why experienced individuals rarely cross Capricorns twice, not because they fear direct retaliation, but because they've witnessed how those who underestimate, mislead, or betray Capricorns eventually encounter precisely calibrated consequences that somehow perfectly match their original transgression. There's something almost supernatural about the poetic justice that seems to follow those who wrong a Capricorn, as if the universe itself maintains a special ledger for balancing accounts on their behalf. Consider how differently Capricorns respond to betrayal compared to more reactively vengeful signs. A Scorpio might orchestrate immediate retribution. A Leo might engage in public confrontation. But Capricorns frequently appear to do nothing at all, continuing forward with such apparent equanimity that transgressors often believe they've escaped consequence entirely. This isn't forgiveness or weakness. It's the supreme confidence of those who understand that certain debts need no active collection, because the universe itself serves as their enforcement mechanism. The development of this power typically follows a fascinating evolution throughout a Capricorn's life. Young Capricorns often experience it as an instinctive withdrawal from those who wrong them, removing themselves from the equation while maintaining mental notes with perfect clarity. Midlife Capricorns usually begin consciously leveraging this awareness, positioning themselves to benefit when inevitable consequences manifest for those who previously dismissed them. Elder Capricorns frequently achieve this power's highest expression, the capacity to orchestrate accountability that serves not just personal vindication, but systemic correction, ensuring that consequences create not just individual justice, but collective improvement. The shadow aspect of this power emerges when karmic awareness calcifies into rigid expectations of punishment, when patience becomes perpetual scorekeeping, when strategic positioning devolves into elaborate revenge, fantasies never meant to materialize. At its worst, karmic accountability can create individuals so focused on cosmic justice that they lose sight of human compassion, so committed to perfect consequences that they cannot allow for growth, learning, or redemption. Yet at its best, this power enables a relationship with justice that transcends emotional reactivity and embraces natural law as the ultimate arbiter. What looks like forgiveness to others is actually profound understanding that vengeance is unnecessary. When universal principles already ensure perfect balance, what seems like passivity is actually supreme confidence in the inevitability of appropriate consequence. For those dealing with Capricorns, understanding this power transforms confusion into respect. Their seeming lack of reaction to mistreatment isn't weakness, but strategic calculation. Their perfect memory isn't pettiness, but precise accounting. Their willingness to continue engagement with those who've wronged them isn't naivety, but positioning for eventual resolution. The Capricorn who appears to have moved past conflict hasn't forgotten. They've simply integrated the transgression into a longer causal timeline where resolution will occur with perfect cosmic timing. And for Capricorns themselves, conscious awareness of this innate judicial intelligence allows for its highest application rather than its limitation. The goal isn't to ensure punishment, but to align with universal equilibrium, not to orchestrate downfall, but to position for correction, to understand that your extraordinary relationship with consequence is not a burden that keeps you tied to past wrongs, but a gift that allows you to trust in the perfect calibration of cosmic justice. Karmic accountability isn't just about patience or memory. At its highest expression, it creates a relationship with justice, fundamentally different from the emotional vengeance or principled activism that drives other signs. It enables not the pursuit of accountability, but trust in its inevitability, perhaps the ultimate freedom from the exhausting work of enforcing consequences in a universe already designed to maintain perfect balance. This concludes our exploration of 4 of Capricorn's most potent dark powers: shadow strategy, emotional fortressing, time distortion mastery, and karmic accountability. Each represents a dimension of Capricornian capability that operates beyond the visible spectrum of conventional zodiac interpretations, explaining why this sign consistently achieves what others consider impossible and navigates challenges that would destroy less fortified individuals. For those seeking to understand the mountain goat's seemingly supernatural abilities to climb where others cannot, to endure what others cannot bear, and to build what others cannot even envision, these powers provide the missing framework. They explain why history's most effective behind-the-scenes architects so often share this sign, why Capricorns achieve their most significant impacts with such apparent ease, and why their methods remain largely mysterious, even to those who witness their results directly. Whether you're a Capricorn seeking to consciously develop your innate capabilities, or someone attempting to understand the Capricornian forces operating in your life, this deeper understanding transforms mystery into appreciation and confusion into clarity. We've journeyed into territories of zodiacal power rarely discussed in mainstream astrology, uncovering the hidden mechanisms behind Capricorn's seemingly supernatural abilities. These 4 dark powers, shadow strategy, emotional fortressing, time distortion mastery, and karmic accountability, form an integrated system of capabilities that explain why this sign achieves the seemingly impossible with such uncanny consistency. Through shadow strategy, we discovered how Capricorns perceive patterns invisible to others, orchestrating complex situations from behind the scenes with a chess master's precision. Their ability to detect deception, exercise supernatural patience, and build alternative systems rather than fighting existing ones makes them formidable strategic architects whose true maneuvers remain largely unseen until fully manifested. In exploring emotional fortressing, we unveiled the sophisticated psychological architecture that allows Capricorns to endure pressures that would shatter others. Their ability to compartmentalize experiences, maintain emotional sovereignty amid chaos, and selectively filter vulnerability creates an unshakable core self that remains untouchable even in the most destabilizing circumstances. Time distortion mastery revealed Capricorn's extraordinary relationship with temporal reality, their capacity to maintain focus across extended timelines, integrate past lessons without emotional entanglement, and orchestrate converging causal chains with the precision of cosmic conductors. This power explains their consistent late-life successes and their ability to manifest visions others cannot even conceptualize. Finally, we examined karmic accountability, Capricorn's profound alignment with natural law that allows them to ensure perfect justice without direct intervention. Their awareness of extended consequence chains, patience for cosmic balancing, and ability to engineer circumstances where transgressors essentially orchestrate their own downfall creates accountability that feels fated rather than forced. Together, these powers create an integrated capability set that makes Capricorns the Zodiac's most effective long-term operators. They don't just play the game, they redesign its fundamental architecture. They don't just climb mountains, they terraform landscapes. They don't just endure hardship, they transform it into structural advantage. For those with strong Capricorn placements, this knowledge offers conscious development of abilities previously operating on instinct alone. For those with Capricorns in their lives, it transforms frustration into appreciation, confusion into understanding, and apparent coldness into recognition of sophisticated emotional and strategic intelligence operating beyond conventional perception. If you found illumination in these revelations, our journey has only begun. Secret of the Zodiac is dedicated to uncovering the hidden dimensions of astrological power that mainstream sources never touch. Subscribe now to ensure you receive our upcoming series exploring the dark powers of every zodiac sign, delving deeper into the shadow capabilities that explain why certain signs consistently manifest specific outcomes. Our next exploration covers the final two Capricorn powers we've only hinted at today: authority absorption, their supernatural ability to command respect from even the most powerful figures while subtly draining their influence, and transmutation of struggle, their alchemical capacity to convert suffering that would destroy others into fuel for unstoppable achievement. The like button isn't just appreciation. It's algorithm currency that ensures this knowledge reaches others seeking deeper understanding of zodiacal mechanisms. Your comment below creates vibrational alignment with these revelations. Tell us which Capricorn power you've witnessed most clearly, either in yourself or someone you know. Type mountain magic if you want us to explore Capricorn's relationship with material manifestation in our next video. For those who found particular value in these revelations, consider supporting Secret of the Zodiac through Super Thanks. This direct contribution helps cover the substantial research costs behind these unconventional explorations and enables us to maintain daily content while diving deeper into territories other channels avoid. Your support literally transforms cosmic knowledge into accessible illumination for our growing community. The Zodiac isn't just 12 personalities. It's 12 distinctive power architectures operating through different frequencies of cosmic intelligence. Understanding these mechanisms doesn't just satisfy curiosity, it provides practical frameworks for leveraging your own chart's capabilities at their highest expression. Until next time, remember that true cosmic literacy isn't about prediction but perception, seeing the invisible architectures that shape manifestation across all domains of existence. The stars don't just influence us, they illuminate pathways to capabilities we already possess but haven't fully recognized. The mountain goat doesn't just climb, it ascends. And now you understand the hidden powers that make that ascension not just possible, but inevitable.